so I don't want to keep everyone here too long. So I'm just going to jump right in and just start off by saying I appreciate you guys being here and that I am absolutely not a guru. So I just want everyone to feel at ease and not like we're doing anything wrong in terms of parenting or any of that stuff. So hopefully some of you guys see my posts on Class Dojo, kind of just like letting everyone know like we're in this together as parents. There's a lot that I've learned over the years that I had no idea about. I'm very passionate about this. I think it's part of our overall health. So some of my buddies hit the gym relentlessly, and I do a lot of this emotional work, so we balance each other out. And that's why I say emotionally strong, because there's a physical aspect of being strong, and there's also a mental aspect, mental toughness, and then there's also the emotional. And I don't want to leave it out. Sometimes you might be confused and say emotions and strong. It almost doesn't seem natural that they go together. Maybe for some of you, you even have a little hesitation when it comes to emotions. Like I know I did when I started this process of learning about this, that emotions, there's almost kind of something not strong about it. So try to keep an open mind as we jump in. And most of us, many adults I've talked to, were never taught emotional regulation. So we have that. It's a skill that has to be learned and practiced. Just like basketball, we can't expect a 17-year-old to step out on a basketball court in a high school game and know exactly what to do, know the rules of the game, know how to dribble, know how to shoot. It's a skill that has to be taught, be modeled, be practiced for years before that 17-year-old goes out and plays the game. And parenting is very similar. So it all depends on how it was modeled for us in our upbringing. So I do tie a lot of how we raise our children with how we were raised and how our parents were raised. I do believe in that generational passing down of certain characteristics, certain traits, certain behaviors. And if anybody here also has similar thinking to me, it was like, well, I know what not to do, so I'm never going to do that again. And then as I got older, I'm like, my wife would be like, hey, you're so much like your dad. What? So, and also please know that I have somewhat of a personality, so please laugh along if I do make a joke. Don't leave me high and dry, like not laugh at all. That makes me feel uncomfortable. And this is definitely not like something about parents where it's like parents are doing everything wrong. Personally, I've had really good talks with my parents learning this stuff, and I got to learn a lot about them, where they came from, what they went through, and so I was also able to have a lot of gratitude in my heart for things that they sacrificed and the selflessness that they did as well. I also still had to work on things that they didn't know. They didn't know what how to give me, and that was incomplete to my, my overall health. So when our kids get emotional, our nervous system can get triggered, and that's challenging. We have different ways of how it looks on the surface, but one of the biggest things is, and this was tough, when my kid is, I have an 8-year-old son, he's in 3rd grade, when he's emotional, he's being a mirror. He's shining a light on things within me that I don't know is there. So if I could just keep that perspective, it doesn't work all the time, but if I could just keep that perspective sometimes, it goes a long way for me, and it goes a long way for him. Knowing that he is shining light on something within me that he's, interrupting. And he's been one of my biggest teachers in terms of doing a lot of this, let's say emotional weightlifting. I try to masculine it up a little bit, make myself feel better. So, most power struggles, right? If we have a lot going with our kids, most power struggles are about what we're trying to get them to do, how we're trying to get them to change, we're trying to fix a situation. Really, it's two nervous systems that are dysregulated in that particular moment. And there's no resolution that's gonna happen when that's going on. If I'm dysregulated, and I'll talk about that in a minute, it's best that I start tapping into what's going on in here, so that I know if I need to breathe, if I need to take a 5-minute break, look to my wife, tap out, right? You're in, I gotta go, whatever it is, however it works in your house. But in order to meet our kids' emotional needs, it's really good to understand where we're at in our, reactivity. So, and kids are gonna challenge, they push, so they make it a challenge, they make it difficult. Tonight is also not about letting kids run the house. So when I talk about emotions, there's that old school part of me that's like, oh, here we go with the, just gonna let the kids do whatever they want, they're gonna throw the remote control across the room. That's not what I'm saying. I think we can have old school and new school. That's my philosophy. I think that old school had its benefits. I think it helped in certain ways. And then I think gentle parenting, a lot of people misunderstand it. I know I did when I first heard the term, and I wanted to just completely dismiss it. I think a lot of people just misuse that term, gentle parenting. It's not about us being gentle and the kids and just being permissive all day long. So I think there's a fine line that I'm still, each day is a work in progress, but there's a fine line that we can balance both. So we can still teach our kids responsibility and behavior stuff, and also allow them to have their full range of emotions, especially in front of us. We are the safest people in their life. They're still, whether they're 5, 8, 10 years old, they're still brand new in this world, right? So they don't know how to put things into perspective. They don't know how to articulate what's going on inside their inner world. And kids at this age, this is my core concept number 1, kids don't experience logic yet. So in our minds, we make a ton of sense. Right? It's almost, we're looking at our kids like, why can't you just get one? Let's just, come on. And they have their own thing going on. So we're talking to different planets, and we're the adults, right? We're the mature, and I say that for myself, responsible ones that have to show up. So it doesn't mean I have to agree with my son's emotions. It doesn't mean that he's right in whatever he says. But it does mean I have to show him enough safety and let him feel what he's feeling. Now with that said, kids live in a very emotional world, and sometimes they're learning how to deal with their emotions. And it's up to us to try to make sure we're stepping into their emotional world. At the same time, we want to make sure that we're balancing responsibility and accountability, and we're teaching them, you can't hit your sister. When you say, I hate you, Daddy, those are hurtful words, right? We don't want to go down that road, right? So we're setting some form of boundaries with them. Now, the caveat to that is, we can't do it while their system is dysregulated and our system is dysregulated. So if we see our kid is not capable of hearing what we have to say, well, that's it, you lost the iPad, and if they're already dysregulated, it's not going to go well. And we are trying to do the best we can to stay grounded in that moment. So, if we try to set a boundary, or let's say a consequence, or hold our kid accountable for whatever it is, it's best that we really perceive that situation for where they're at. And if we see this ain't going to go well if I try to set this consequence, it's probably going to get me more angry and upset. That's not the best time to do it. So we got to take what it is we're trying to teach them and just realize for that moment, not forever, but just for that moment, I cannot teach him or her in this instance. We have to work on regulating your emotions first, and then we come back to it later and we discuss what happened. And then we teach. We just try to let them know that what they did, if they hit their sister or threw a remote control, that's going to be unacceptable in our house. And this is what we can do moving forward. So has anyone ever heard of the term like kids are like sponges? Yeah, so a lot of times we think it's what they hear, or it's what, what they see. A lot of it has to do with our emotional world. Kids take in a lot of what we have going on our inside. Now, we do the best we can as adults, and we have a lot of stress and overwhelm in our own lives, and we do the best we can with shielding it from our kids. But kids are super sensitive, especially if you have a kid that's really sensitive. They can pick up on our energies, and sometimes me and my wife are like shocked when I'm like, I don't know, we sounded pretty good right there. Like, how is he picking up on our? It's almost like, yeah. So the kids pick up, they know. So anytime we try to set a boundary, we want to make sure when it's not done out of anger, and it's not the healthiest route to go. And then sometimes when we start getting dysregulated, there's two routes that we can go. One is control. So I'm going to dominate you until you do what I tell you to do, right? You obey, you comply, and your behavior changes right now, right? Well, there's major stuff that's about to happen. So that's very threatening for a little kid. So we got to be careful with that. And then the other thing is going the opposite route and being permissive. So we set a boundary with our child, we set a consequence for behavior, and then our child gets, you ever see a kid, like 2 minutes later, it's not like they throw a remote control and hit their kid, their sister. They're like, I love you. And you're like, thanks so much for making me dinner. And you're like, and some of us, we can backtrack, right? They'll say, can I get my iPad now? It's like, you know what, you've been behaving for 5 minutes. Like, I got things to do. And instead of holding that line, we kind of move the boundary back a little bit. And kids will keep coming. If we don't set that firm, then kids just keep going and going. And again, that's going to really dysregulate us. So it's best that we try to not control and not be too permissive. And another thing, and I see so many good-hearted parents do this, we want to fix. So when our kid is upset, it's like, oh, I'm here. What do you need? What can I do in this moment? Right? And our kids can handle their own emotions. We don't have to save them from where they're at. On an unconscious level, we can actually let our kids know, you can't handle this either. That's why mommy and daddy have to do this, right? So we're not doing this on purpose, but when our kids are having big emotions, we can let them have it. And we can stay as grounded as we can in those moments. So that's important too. We don't have to jump right in. And I think of an example. My son made something for me and my wife at school for Christmas. We came home from the diner, and he said, I just want to work on it a little bit more. So I'm like, sure, go ahead. So he starts doing it, and he slams the table, he gets angry, and I'm like, what happened, buddy? And he's like, I ruined it. I ruined your gift. I tried to make it nice, and I messed it all up. And my first response is, it's okay. Right? I try to take him out of that feeling. I'm like, dude, it's okay. And then I followed that up by being like, bro, there's more paper. You can do another one. Right? Now, it sounds crazy in the beginning of practicing this, because it's almost like, why would I let my kids sit in anger? That's how they learn to manage their anger. Right? We can't save them from their emotions. They have to experience the full range. Same as adults. Right? And we can do this with other adults. We jump in and try to, has anyone ever tried to fix anyone in here? We don't like it. When we're in a mood, when we got something going on and someone's like, oh, just do this. We're like, well, thanks for listening. Right? That's not, you know? So same thing with kids. We can trust them to work through whatever it is they have going on. Now, it doesn't mean we just walk out the door and be like, all right, see ya. It's like, I'm still here for you. Well, I'm going to support you, but you're going to be okay. Kids are also very logical, and that core concept number one, they can't separate. Dad had a long day. He's tired. That's why he's yelling at me. You know what, dude? Go get yourself a steak. Go relax, right? The kids aren't saying, Mom's stressed. Mom's overwhelmed. Let me go fold some laundry, because clearly Mom needs help right now. Kids they're not on that level. When we get angry, when we yell, when we tone of voice, facial expression, right? What do you need now, right? Kids don't look at it and say, okay, my mom or dad is stressed, overworked, right? They look at that and say, they don't like me. And I've talked to many kids. On simple experiences kids have with parents, I know what the parent's going through. I feel it. I get it. They don't. They think I'm bad. Those are things that come out. Something is, my mom don't love me. Where it's like, how did you get that out of that? Like, mom just did X, Y, and Z, threw you the best birthday party ever, but that's their emotional world. They're not in understanding where we're at. And on Fridays, I do a little health class during gym. We started it this year. I'm not diving into anything too deep, so don't worry. I am talking about emotions, and the kids have been great. They're like anger, and I have sadness, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm like, and which ones are you allowed to have? And some kids are like happiness, and I'm like, right. I'm like, we're taught you can be happy, can't be sad, can't be angry, right? So they've been really cool at bringing their own perspective as kids into the class, which helps me out as a teacher. Core concept number 2 is the stance. This is the stance that we take as parents. So we're not locking horns with them in terms of feelings. We're not arguing with them. If they're in their feelings, that's allowed. We're still going to stick to behavior. So I tell my son all the time, I'm like, dude, you're allowed to get as angry as you want. I go, but once you start, saying this or doing this, that's a no-no. And he still doesn't know everything yet, so he gets a consequence at some point, and then we try to use it as a teachable moment. I'm like, so next time when you start getting like that and you feel it, and I always tell him where you feel it in your body, right? And he'll say, oh, I feel it in my head. Meaning say just say something mean. And I'm like, good. So when you start, let's get there and try to slow things down. So a good example is it was a Friday, I worked 11 hours here, I walk in the door, 2 minutes. I got no dinner on my system, and I gotta take my son right to basketball practice. That's an hour. I get home, now it's 7:30, 7:45, the dog has to go out. Of course, it's pouring rain out, so I'm outside with the dog. We're getting soaked. My son has the shower. So I come in, he's nice and clean. So I said to my wife, I go, the dog is all wet, so while I'm trying to get my dinner right. It's almost 8 o'clock at night. Friday night, long week, everybody relates. What does he do? 1 minute later, he's rolling around with the dog. So I look at my wife and I don't understand why he don't just listen. And he shot back, fresh. Whoo, he cut me right down. And I was like, so now I got like the Bronx guy on my shoulder, like, oh boy. Like, he just messed up, And then I have, learning me. And I'm like, okay. This is exactly what's happening right now. My comment to my wife dysregulated him, and he went right into lashing out. That's the way he knows how to deal with it right now. And I told him firmly, right, just set the boundary. I said, you can't speak to your father like that. I said, that's unacceptable. Now, I also knew if I kept going at him, it was going to spiral into both of us losing him. So that was it. That's all. Sometimes we don't have to over-explain. I always tell my wife too, I'm like, the less talking, the less explaining, the better. Sometimes it's just, we can't just explain our way, because the kids, they're not listening. They're not taking it all in. Again, in our minds, we're making a ton of sense. We're explaining like, oh, they're going to totally get it. So I had to wait some time, and then I went back to my son at night, who was a lot more calm. And I said, listen, something happened before, and I said, I'm just trying to figure out what set you off, what made you say something hurtful to me. And because he was calm, and I've been practicing with him, and he felt safe, he actually said, I don't know. I was like, oh, he don't. So adults, when we rage out, when we react immediately, it's like survival instinct. We can't explain it. It's not a rational thought. It's like, I don't know, that's just in me. It just came, the way I did it. And I said, I know you don't know. And he goes, I don't know why I react like that. He didn't say react. He goes, I don't know why I get like that. And I said, well, that's what we're working on. I said, that's what we're trying to do. I said, so I just threw out a couple of options. And he's like, I don't like you talking to mommy in front of me like that. Like about me. So that was the trigger. So now I knew. Just by me posing a question to my wife about him was something that really he didn't like. So then we had just a little conversation about it. And I said, just so you know, I said, when you get angry, you still said something very mean. And I said, so we have to apologize. And he was heartfelt when he said, I'm sorry. He really, he felt bad. And so that's where consequences, even just saying, listen, you owe me an apology. And that, we gotta work on that. That can also come into play. So that helps a lot too. And core concept number 3 is what to say in these moments, and I kind of been tapping into that. But the 3-step regulation rule is validate their nervous system. I might not agree with it. They're not right, but I need to validate where they're at. So my wife can ask my son 4 times to brush his teeth. He don't do any of those times to brush his teeth. And then the 5th time, she says, a little like, dude, can you brush your teeth? And he's like, you don't love me. I'm like, what? We just asked 4 times to brush your teeth. So validate their nervous system. That's going to go a long way. Really, kids aren't born manipulative. They're not trying to disrespect us. They're not trying to get over on us. They're looking for safety in certain moments. They really genuinely are. And sometimes that's hard because all we see is what's on the surface, right? Whatever behavior is happening. But deep down, they could be looking for something a lot more, and they just can't put their finger on it. So, correct the behavior, that's always a big one. So we can validate the feelings, that's over here, but the behavior also still needs to be taken a look at. And if we can do anything there to help out, we can. And if our child, right, because all this stuff sounds great in theory, and I practice this, and my son can lose it even more, then I have to know myself in those moments again. And say, okay, I feel the volcano starting to erupt. All right, I gotta take a step away. I have to do what I need to do to calm myself down so that he doesn't feel that, because it's not fair to little kids that they take on some of our emotions. They can't handle it. They don't know what to do with it. All right, so the repair part, which is huge, and this really made me feel relieved, because I'm falling short all the time. And I'm like, learning about this stuff, oh goodness. I'm like,
religious education students, please start writing now.
what was I saying? Oh, repair. Yeah, so when I learned about this, it was like, wow, because some of it was like on my end, and I was like, oh, I got some work to do. And, but the repair work is great, because it tells me that I'm not terrible. I'm doing the best I can as a father. And I really accept that about myself, even when I feel short. And you know what? I'm not perfect. And I know, because I've talked to a lot of adults, a lot of parents, there are so many of us out there that have similar stories that are really struggling at times. And that's why I wanted to do a talk like this, because I feel like sometimes, I'm speaking for myself, sometimes I feel like, am I the only one? Am I the only one whose kid is doing this? Am I the only one whose kid says this, or acts like this, or, has these mannerisms and these characteristics? And I'm not. And I've learned that over the years. And that's reassuring. So repair work is huge, because I don't want my kid internalizing shame, right? I don't want my kid to walk around feeling flawed or something's wrong with them when I, dump my emotions onto him. And so when I do have my moments, which I do, because I could be stressed, I could be tired, I could be hungry, I could be, whatever it is I have going on, the Giants are terrible, whatever. I don't know. I know I can fall short in those moments, and then I usually feel pretty guilty after, because I've learned healthier ways to deal, and I'm like, oh man, I have to go back to my son and let him know, hey, bud, that anger, that's my anger. That's not, had nothing to do with you, you know? And that's it. I just have to let him know, and that's all we can do with our kids is let them know it's like that's mine. That's my emotion. That's my stuff to carry. And I shouldn't have raised my voice like that. I shouldn't have, you know, yelled at you to go into your room, whatever it is. And so we just want to let them know that that's the, you know, it's not on them to carry. They don't have to fully understand, but it goes a long way in just doing that repair work. And again, it doesn't remove consequences. Just because, so my son has done this, and I'm like, bud, I love you. I'm sorry, that was my anger. He's like, can I get the iPad now? I'm like, no. The consequence sticks. My love is there, but, you know, because kids will pick up on that. Oh, daddy loves me, mommy loves me again. Can I go get the, you know, the snack? And I'm like, no. You know, consequence is still there. Which is tough, because our kids are cute, and, you know, we might have 100 things to do, so we gotta hold that boundary and make sure that we stick to it. And sometimes it's really not easy. You know, if we asked a 24-year-old who's never been taught how to ride a bike, how to go out and ride a bike and start doing tricks on it and go down a hill on a bike, and most of us, we know we wouldn't judge it. We would just say, no, of course the 24-year-old doesn't know how to. They never learned. Nobody ever taught them, right? So I really want some of us to take some kind of solace in knowing that, like, I'm not speaking for everybody in here, but knowing that, like, a lot of this work has been pretty new over the past 50 years. And I know emotional regulation is like a hot buzzword, and boundaries too. But they are really healthy ways to deal with what we got going on in here, so that we're not passing it off to our children. So I gave you guys like a real life example of when my son kind of went through his instance, and I knew if I tried to consequence him in the moment, it wouldn't have went well. And I've done it in the past, and it gets ugly fast, you know, because he's now in his, and I'm upset and angry, and I feel like he's disrespecting me, and he's not listening. And meanwhile, it's just two nervous systems that are not regulated, and it's not going to go anywhere. I mean, we can even look at relationships and marriage being similar, right? If I'm dysregulated, or if my wife is, one of us has to step out. One of us has to take a step away and say, all right, listen, this is going to start spiraling into what we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and, you know, all this other stuff, and it can turn ugly. We can say hurtful things in those short, brief moments when we're really dysregulated. So it's best, at least one of us, and the same thing with a kid, at least one of us has to just step away and say, hey, I gotta go check this out first, and when I'm feeling like okay, then I'm gonna come back in. One trap that gentle parenting has done is we think that we have to be calm all the time, and that's not what kids don't need calm all the time. Sometimes we think if we talk, we say, okay, I'm not getting angry. I just need you to listen to me, right? And the volcano is just going. Kids sense that. They pick up on that energy. So again, it's important for us to know, I could be nice, I could sound almost shy talking to a child, like, okay, I'm just gonna ask nicely. Meanwhile, what's happening inside of us is like, if they tell me no one more time. So that's on us to say, okay, I don't have to speak like this. I also know something's brewing. So before I go down that road, I could just, again, if you have a partner, great, tag out, and just try to do the best in those moments. If we fall short in those moments, if we lash out, if we react, that's okay too. We're human, and there's repair work that can happen. I've done I do repair work a lot, so it's like I go back to my son, I'm like, dude, that was on me. He said, you told me that yesterday. I'm like, it's on me again. So in closing, we're at a half an hour here. So strong parenting, I do believe in strong parenting. I don't think it's about control. I don't think it has to be done through fear. We don't have to put fear into these kids to be like, oh, you know, because kids who obey out of fear grow up to be adults that I work with outside of school. I do a ton of childhood work with adults, and a lot of it stems from being like, I was petrified of my mom. I did not play with my father. And now they're reworking this stuff. So fear, I've seen it in my own experience as a counselor outside of here. It is real, and it impacts people in many different ways. So we don't want to use fear as a tool. And again, with that said, we can also hold them responsible without having to shame them or be too harsh on them and things like that. So we're not trying to stop kids from having big emotions. We're not trying to fix them. We're teaching kids that emotions are part of life. And I'm going to be your rock. I'm here to manage this storm with you, and I'm not going anywhere. Okay? And kids need that so much. They just need that safety. And it goes a long way. So I know some of you signed in. I had a little thing going around. And I also have up here just kind of like a take home. Just like raising emotionally strong kids, just like 4 steps. Why talking doesn't work. And I try to explain talking. Sometimes we could be like, okay, listen, here's the deal, right? It's our anxiety, but we're like, tomorrow we have a party. We have no time to waste. We picked out your clothes, right? Those are the shoes you're gonna wear. You're agreeing with me, right? We have a plan, right? And the kid's just like, whatever, like I'm trying to play PlayStation, you know? And it's our anxiety being like, I'm just trying to let you know, because I don't want to lose you tomorrow. So if I lose it, it's on you. So we don't have to talk. Sometimes talking is just wasting our energy and can get us worked up. How your nervous system dictates the tone of the home. We are the leaders in our home. Yes, kids can have bigger emotions than us, and on the surface it looks like they are, winning or something. We're the leaders. We're the ones that are in control of what we have going on inside of us, and it's up to us to stay grounded, helping kids feel safe without giving in. That's huge. We don't have to become overly permissive. We can actually keep them safe and teach them responsibility and accountability, and then how to end meltdowns fast without yelling or giving up. And then there's just a 60-second reset, all right? Some of it looks very simple. I'm a simple person. I like things broken down for me, so I'm not putting all types of, counseling jargon in here. It's just step back, drop the shoulders, take a breath. Pretty much what I talked about. Respond as the leader in the family if you can. If you're overworked, if you're worked up, dysregulated, take a step away. Come back and feel a little better. So it's 5:35. If anyone has any questions, I'm going to sit here for a few minutes. I have no problem answering anything or anything you're interested in. Thanks for listening.
That was great, Mrs. Allen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm a huge reader, yeah. Yeah, so John Bradshaw is a guy that was around in the 80s. So my dad used to tell me, this wasn't around on my day. I'm like, dude, this was from a PBS. This was from 1987, so you're wrong. Yeah, it's a lot of inner child work, family system stuff. Yeah, John Bradshaw is great with that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no,